The galaxy held its breath. The galactic concordance, a fragile alliance of 1,000 species, faced its greatest threat, the Vorlag. These insectoid monstrosities were a tide of claws and acid, consuming worlds with relentless, terrifying efficiency. For centuries, the Vorlag had been an unstoppable force. Species after species had fallen, their fleets shattered, their armies devoured. The concordance was on the brink of collapse. In a desperate, final gambit, they turned to a newly discovered species, one that had only recently achieved interstellar travel. They were bipeds from a high-gravity world, strangely resilient and unerringly aggressive. They called themselves humans. The Concordance Council, led by the sagely Xylot High Elder, requested military aid. They didn't expect much, perhaps a diversion, a delaying tactic. What they got was a puzzle. The human ambassador, a stern woman named General Eva Rostova, listened patiently to the pleas. When asked what elite forces humanity could deploy, she simply replied, "We are sending the 101st Infantry Division." The Xylot Elder was confused. "Infantry? We require your most specialized, most elite commandos. Your special forces, as your lexicon translates." General Rostova offered a thin, enigmatic smile. "The 101st will be sufficient." The council was aghast. Sending mere foot soldiers against the Vorlag horde was a death sentence. It was an insult, but with no other options, they reluctantly accepted. The 101st Infantry Division arrived at the besieged planet of Xylos, a critical strategic stronghold. The Concordance forces were in tatters, their orbital defenses breached. Vorlag swarms were pouring onto the surface. The Xylot commander, Kyler, watched the human dropships descend into the heart of the maelstrom. He prepared to witness a massacre. What he saw defied all logic. The human soldiers, clad in what looked like rudimentary armor, disembarked not with fear, but with a terrifying, focused calm. They moved with a speed and coordination that seemed impossible. They weren't fighting a battle, they were conducting a symphony of destruction. The Vorlag warriors, creatures that could tear through plasteel with their talons, were cut down in waves. Human projectile weapons, crude by galactic standards, spat streams of kinetic death that punched through carapaces with brutal efficiency. When the Vorlag closed the distance, the humans didn't retreat. They fixed bayonets, archaic blades of sharpened metal. They charged into the swarm, fighting claw to knife, their war cries echoing through the calm's channels, a guttural, primal sound that chilled Kyler to his core. Kyler watched a single human soldier, his leg impaled by a Vorlag barb, simply snap the barb off, wrap the wound with a strip of cloth, and continue firing his weapon while screaming insults at the enemy. He saw another, her arm severed, pick up her rifle with her remaining hand and keep fighting until she was overwhelmed. This wasn't tactics, it was sheer, unadulterated ferocity. Within hours, the Vorlag offensive faltered. Within a day, it was broken. The 101st hadn't just held the line. They had pushed the swarm back, carving a path of annihilation through their ranks. They took objectives the Xylot command had deemed suicidal, suffering casualties that would have shattered the morale of any other army, yet they fought on. A shaken Kyler contacted General Rostova. "Your soldiers, they are magnificent. Their resilience, their ferocity, I have never witnessed such elite warriors. What specialized training do they undergo? What genetic enhancements have you blessed them with?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. General Rostova's voice was flat, almost confused. "Commander, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The 101st are not special forces. They are our regular army, standard issue infantry." Kyler's mandibles hung open. He looked at the battlefield data again. He saw the feats of endurance, the pain tolerance, the sheer refusal to die. Regular, but their combat doctrine. Charging an enemy that outnumbers them 100 to 1. Using their own wounded as fighting positions, it's insane. We call it fire and maneuver and holding the line. Rostova replied calmly, "They are expected to perform their duty. The casualties were within acceptable parameters. Acceptable parameters." Kyler shuddered. He replayed the comms chatter he'd intercepted. The humans weren't screaming in terror. They were shouting things like "Get some," and "Is that all you've got?" They were making jokes while their comrades fell around them. They were enjoying it. News of the Battle of Xylos spread through the Concordance like wildfire. The Council re-examined the data on humanity. Their homeworld, Earth, was a chaotic death trap. Constant seismic activity, extreme weather shifts, a biosphere filled with predators and poisons. Their entire evolutionary history was an unbroken chain of conflict, not just with their environment, but with each other. They had spent millennia perfecting the art of war before they even learned to leave their own planet. What the Concordants saw as apocalyptic conditions, the humans called Tuesday. The Xylot High Elder summoned General Rostova again. His tone was now one of profound respect and deep-seated fear. "General," he began, his voice trembling slightly, we were mistaken. We now understand. If this is the caliber of your regular infantry... We must ask, what are your special forces?" General Rostova looked the High Elder in his multiple eyes, her expression unreadable. "You don't want to know," she said softly. "You pray to your gods that you never, ever need to find out. The 101st fights for our allies. Our special forces... They fight for humanity's survival. And they don't take prisoners." A cold dread settled over the Galactic Concordance. They had asked for help from a species of scrappy survivors. What they had unleashed was a race of warriors forged in a crucible of violence, a people for whom the horrors of galactic war were just another day at the office. The Vorlag were a threat to the galaxy's existence, but the Concordants began to realize that their new saviors, the humans, might be the most terrifying thing of all. And the galaxy would never be the same. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more.